Are you someone who finds yourself an emotional eater? Do you find yourself using food to avoid dealing with stress and frustration? Or are you one of those people that has a drink to take the edge off at the end of the day? If this is you, you're going to love today's topic. Today's topic is called Life-Changing Tips to Inspire You to Stop Emotional Eating. My name is Suzanne Hart, and welcome to Unstoppable Mindset. Each week, we bring you breakthrough strategies to help you reset your thinking so you can live life filled with passion and totally on purpose. This conversation is for you if you are someone who eats when you're stressed, frustrated, angry. If you have been using food to possibly avoid dealing with your emotions, or if you've been battling with that 10 to 20 pounds, you're dieting, but you can't seem to keep it off. I am here to give you a little bit of insight you may not know. So as you jump in today, as you come on board, please let us know who you are and exactly where you are joining us from. As you come on, also let us know what you do while you're living and who you're called to serve. Who is that group of people that you have been placed here to move, inspire, and work with? I see Cindy has joined us. I see Charia is on. So as you come on in, let us know what brought you out today. Is there something about this topic that excited you? Is there something that you really want to know? And is there something that you're personally challenged with? Put that in the comment section because we would like to get in a little deeper into that. Also, I'm going to ask you to bless a life. And what that means is to share this Facebook Live, share this broadcast with someone in your network. Share it to your personal page, share it in a group that you're part of, share it with a friend who you're like, oh my goodness, this topic is for you. If you're listening to the replay, #replay, thank you for joining. But I'm also going to ask you to do the exact same thing. As you come on in the comment section, let us know who you are and exactly where you are joining us from. Also, let us know who you're called to serve and what you do while you're living. What are you passionate about? Why do we do this? Because this is our online virtual networking opportunity. And as people jump on replays, lives, they check the comment section out. You may be surprised who will look at your information and say, I need to connect with that person. So go ahead, put your information in. This is our virtual networking opportunity. Also, even if you're listening to the replay, when you love what you hear, go ahead, bless a life, share this information. I see someone else has joined us and they're saying hello, hello. If that is you, please let us know. Let me know who you are because I don't see your name and I'd love to call you by name. But thank you very much for joining. And everyone, I want you to let me know what inspired you about this topic. I see Cindy says, yes, I am an emotional eater. Cindy, one of the things I want to ask you is what's one tip you'd like to know? What's one question you'd like to have answered as you walk away from this live that maybe you could implement right away? Okay, so I am so excited to dive into this topic. As I said, my name is Suzanne Hart. Welcome to Unstoppable Mindset. And today's topic is life-changing tips to inspire you to stop your emotional eating. This is for you if you are someone who eats when you're stressed, someone who eats when you're angry, someone who eats when you're frustrated, someone who eats when you're maybe alone or feeling a little depressed. This is for you if you've been trying to lose the same 5 to 10 pounds, maybe 20 to 30 pounds, that comes on, it goes off, it comes on, it goes off, and you just can't get a handle on it because you can't seem to control your eating. This is for you if you use food or alcohol to get the edge off at the end of the day. I am definitely talking to you. So I am excited for this topic. How this topic came about and why it's so important to me is we're talking about emotions. This is our emotional mastery, master your emotions section of Mindset Mastery. And, you know, oftentimes people are like, what does emotions have to do with weight loss? What does emotions have to do with health? Well, it has everything to do. The two are very connected. I became present to this probably in my early to mid 20s. When I was young, I was very skinny, being pole. I think I was 60 pounds forever. And then gradually began to gain weight, but nothing really to talk about. I was slender most of my early childhood and teenage years. However, as I got into my early 20s, what I think I began to notice was the weight started creeping on. And at one point, I found myself 40 pounds overweight. Now, this was also a time when I was a competitive bodybuilder, and I was doing those strict diets. And whenever I'd get off a diet and the weight would start to come back on because I was finishing a contest, my emotions would be all over the place as I saw and felt myself gaining weight. And no matter what I did, I couldn't seem to stop this cycle. And I found myself eating. And what I began to recognize was I ate for many reasons. I didn't actually eat when I was hungry. I found myself eating when I was frustrated. I found myself eating when I was sad. I found myself eating when I was angry. I found myself eating when I was depressed. I found myself eating when I was lonely. Does this sound familiar to anyone? I did not realize, but probably all my life, I was an emotional eater. But it wasn't until I became an adult that I really began to see the impact of it. Now, this was the interesting thing. I also ate when I was happy. I ate when I was excited. I ate when I fell in love. I ate when I fell out of love. I just ate for any emotion you could think of. Now, how many of you find yourself doing the same thing? But I noticed that it didn't really matter what reason. I was just eating, but I had very little control over it. So my weight would fluctuate up and down. So I want to dive into why this happened to me and why it happens to most people and what I have been able to learn to be able to manage my weight and learn to master my emotions that allowed me to maintain the same weight since I was about 26 years old. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is what exactly is this thing called emotional eating, right? Sharia says, I notice cravings increase when I am stressed. Absolutely. And you probably crave very specific things, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So what is emotional eating? Well, emotional eating is when we eat when we're experiencing emotions. Now, most people will say you'll eat when you're experiencing emotions that cause you distress, that have you feel somewhat vulnerable. So it's when we're stressed, when we're angry, when we're hurt, when we're alone, when we feel depressed, when we feel frustrated, when we feel somewhat out of control. Those are often what people talk about when they talk about emotional eating. But I'm going to broaden it and I'm going to put a spin on it. So first of all, let me just give you the picture for this. Have you ever had a friend come out, you call a friend and you tell them the woe is me, this is what happened today story. And they say, girl, I'm coming over. Let's go get some food and let's grab a bottle of wine and let's just put it behind you. Because we do two things. We do retail therapy and we do eating therapy, right? We eat. So that's what emotional eating is. And that's really what I focused on. But this is the other thing I noticed. How many of you also eat when you are happy, when you're in absolute celebration, when you're hanging out with friends and you're having a good time, when you go home for Thanksgiving, Christmas, all those big holidays, right? This is really what happens. So those are the things that happen. I see Virginia says, I ate for two when I was pregnant with my first, other women encouraged it. I totally get it, right? And so this is the thing. We eat when we're happy. We eat when we're sad. We eat when we experience emotional change. The question is why. So I think why most of us eat is because we as society, and we talked about this for the past 2 weeks, we are not taught to deal with our emotions. We are not taught to express our emotions. So most of us, we eat to avoid emotions. I see Cindy saying, I eat for all of the above reasons. I can totally shake hands with you. So we are not taught to deal with our emotions. So what we do is we eat it. I kind of call it feeding the hole, right? And the hole is that place inside you where you know there's something going on. And rather than go figure out what it is, we fill it. And we fill it with food. Who can relate? If you can relate, put yes in the comments section. Got it, Suzanne. Yes, yes, right? Feeding the hole. I can relate, Turi is saying. And we fill it. We fill it. We fill it. Now, this is the interesting thing. Where does this come from? So one of the questions that everyone asks me is, why does comfort food feel so good, and where does this habit come from? Well, one of the things I realized as I was doing this work, because one of the things I went on a search to find out was, why was this happening? Because although I understood I was eating for my emotions, I really couldn't figure out why or how to stop it. So let me just put some light on a few things. So why does comfort food feel so good? And we do go for comfort food. So comfort food for some of you might be wine and alcohol. Comfort food for others might be, mine is hot bread and butter, hot chocolate, comfort food, total comfort food for Suzanne. Comfort food might be chips and salty stuff. Whatever that is for you, we go to it. It's called comfort food for a reason. So this is what I have figured out. As I began to work with my clients and go through this, and this was something I focused on really early on when I started this whole concept called Mindset Mastery. And one of the things I began to focus on was, what is this thing called comfort food? And no matter who I spoke to, if I said, why is it that you eat this food? Or why this is your thing? At first they'd say, I don't know. And then I'd say, I want you to go back to your home when you were celebrating or feeling really comfortable at home, where you felt safe, where you were interacting with family members and it just felt really good. What were you doing? And most people would say, well, of course, we were eating. Clue number one, what were you eating? And then we began to see these patterns. So I had one client say that the times I felt the most safe was when I was curled up on the couch with my family, and we were eating chips and having pop, and it was just such a wonderful time. I would have other people say, when our family got together, we would eat this, this, and this. And it was such a wonderful time. I began to realize that when my mother came home, because my mom traveled for work the first few years, and whenever she came home, she would do one cool thing. My mom would always be home for major holidays, and for every major holiday, she would bake homemade bread, and I would wake up to the smell of hot bread, which I would proceed to eat with butter, and my mother would make homemade cocoa. And I'm talking like grater the cocoa, made totally from scratch, like if you're from the islands, absolute island style. And I felt the happiest because I was eating my favorite foods and my mom was home. I felt safe. And so for many of us, if we go back and we look into our happy, safe, comfortable times, you will often see that's associated not only with food, but with a particular type of food. We all have our go-tos. And why I think it's called comfort food is because during those times we felt safe, we felt comfortable, we felt stress-free, we felt happy. If you can relate, put in the comment section, I can relate. Taria's saying never looked at alcohol as comfort food. Totally, right? So Taria's saying, as a little kid, I loved when my mom would make cornmeal porridge. To this day, it always takes me to my happy place. Comfort food. Virginia saying, I can relate. So there's these foods that we eat. Now, this is the thing. I want you guys to think about this. When I'm experiencing an emotion that has me feel distress or has me feel vulnerable, I am in a place of discomfort. For some reason, I've been pushed to the edge of what's comfortable. And when, as soon as we feel discomfort, we feel vulnerable. My mind has a desire to recreate comfort, to get me out of that place of discomfort and put me in a place that's comfortable. So what better thing to do than to alter my state, flood my body with all the endorphins and all these feel-good chemicals and totally distract me from the discomfort of my emotion and say, wow, that's good. So now I'm distracted, I'm feeling great, it feels good in the moment, and I'm not dealing with the emotion. Are you guys tracking? Right? So that's why it works. But the thing is, why it becomes this vicious cycle, and I want you guys to get this, why it becomes this vicious cycle is we actually never deal with the emotion. And comfort food becomes the habit. And you know, we'll be back in habits in a little bit, but comfort food becomes the habit. And so when I feel this emotion, the habit that makes me feel comfortable kicks in, and I'm in this vicious cycle. Discomfort, habit, comfortable. Discomfort, habit, comfortable. And I'm caught in this cycle. Now, this is a crazy thing about what we do when we're talking about, I'm an emotional eater. Most of us say, I gotta go on a diet, I gotta lose the weight, I gotta start working out, I gotta do all that. That is like, and not that those things aren't important, but that is like the focus is on weight loss. That's like dealing with the symptom and not the cause of the problem. So we're dealing with the symptoms and we're off. We've got the newest fad diet. We've got the newest exercise plan. We lose the weight, but then something happens and we get an emotion that makes us feel uncomfortable. And we say, oh my gosh, I got to do something to get out of this state of emotion. I got to create what makes me comfortable. And we run to comfort food. We blow our diet because we are dealing with the symptom, not the cause. So what we need to look at is the cause. Oh, don't forget the guilty face of the vicious cycle. It always feels horrible. I always feel horrible about myself afterwards. Let's just go there. Thank you. I don't know who that is who made that comment, but we're right on the money. So downward spiral is that we get caught in the habit, and with the habit, part of the cycle is guilt, beating ourselves up. We feel worse. Now we're back in the emotional state. We need to feel more comfortable. We go back to the habit we know, stuff the emotion, feed the emotion, more guilt, more emotion, don't want to deal with that emotion, and here we are. We're in this vicious cycle, and it's going round and round and round. And then we decide, well, let me go deal with it. Let's go on a diet. Let's do that exercise plan. Let's do all those things. But it's not the real issue. The real issue is the emotion. And because those emotions keep popping up and they're never dealt with, you're caught in the cycle. So this is what happened for Suzanne, was that when I figured this out, I was like, OMG, seriously, because I was working out, I was eating clean, I was doing all the right things. I knew what to do. I knew how to work out. I knew how to get in shape for a contest. I would hit my target every time. As soon as that contest was over and the goal had been hit, I want you guys to get it, and I was done, I went back into my cycle. I could only interrupt it for a period of time. And the crazy thing was, when I wasn't competing, although I knew exactly what I needed to do, I couldn't stop the cycle. This was why. When I was competing, everything else in life went on hold. I didn't have time to feel. I was like moving from place to place to place to place to place. And as long as I was caught in that routine, I was golden. Once that routine was done and I had to go back to my real life and start dealing, emotions started coming back in and I was caught in the cycle again. Wanted you guys to get this. So what do you do? What exactly do you do? So for me, it was to stop and not deal with the symptom, diet and exercise, but to deal with the cause, my emotional state, And so for part of it was I actually had to go and get counseling, coaching, mentorship. And I had to go and learn how to unpack my emotions. Now, this was the interesting thing. And this is why I say we often feed the whole. I did, in my mastermind, I did this whole conversation on emotional literacy. And why I did this conversation on emotional literacy is putting words to feelings, but also identifying the things we say with emotions, the behaviors that we do with certain emotions. So there's a behavior and words that come out of my mouth when I'm in shame. There's a behavior and words that come out of my mouth when I feel guilty. There's a behavior and words that come out of my mouth, like nothing comes out of my mouth when I'm really angry. I'm like dead silent and I cry. So I had to begin to give myself permission to feel, but I actually had to be able to put language to the emotion so I could, one, identify what was going on, and two, begin to talk about it. Because you see, you and I can't talk about what we don't know. So most of us, we are angry or frustrated. That's the extent of our emotions. I'm angry and frustrated. But we don't talk about shame. We don't talk about guilt. We don't talk about deep hurt. We don't talk about betrayal. We don't talk about all those things. And because we don't talk about them and we don't know how to talk about them, we stuff them. We feed the space where that emotion is bubbling in us and we push it down and we suppress it. We feed that hole and we just push it down. So what I had to begin to learn was, one, to accept that I had emotions going on that were running me, right? Listen to the language I'm using, running me, and I was making choices, or my emotions were making choices for me, versus I was choosing and responding to situations. I was reacting to many things that happened in my life, and I was reacting by coping with food. I was reacting by coping with drinks. I was reacting by coping with avoidance and using food and drink to avoid my situation. So that was the pattern. That was the habitual way of being. So step one, I had to accept that I had these emotions that were popping up in my life that I didn't know how to deal with. Two was I had to begin to put language to the emotions. I had to begin to put words to the emotions. And three is I had to find, now get this, a safe place where I could be vulnerable enough to talk through the emotion. to talk through what was going on. And the minute I was able to talk through it, I was able to release the feeling, that thing I was feeding, that thing I was pushing down, I was able to release it. And interestingly, I didn't need to eat as much. And I'll tell you, as I began to do this work, I continued to work out, I continued to eat healthy, and weight just fell off me. It was like I lost the weight and didn't even know it was happening because my cravings and my temptations went away. Simple. My cravings and my temptations went away. Why? Because I wasn't dealing with the symptom anymore. I was dealing with the cause of it. Now, similarly, when I had to deal with happy emotions, i.e., I'm going to my family for reunions, for get-togethers, all these things, I also had to look at those emotions and actually look at what I attach to those emotions. So what I realized was I was conditioned, get this, to believe that if I was celebrating, it was okay to overdrink and overeat. That was the norm. And to overdrink and overeat was equal to being happy, was equal to celebration, was equal to having a good time. That was the conversation that was running in my head. Again, I had to talk it through with someone and figure it out. Once I figured it out, I had to now begin to do something different. So I got to share this with you guys because the first time I went home and I pushed my plate away and I said, no, I'm fine. I've had enough. My family said, come on, we're celebrating. What, you don't like the food? What's going on? Don't insult your mom. She's worked really hard. I got all these things and I realized for the first time where my conditioning had come from. Because when we celebrate and we get together, the pattern in the family was overeat, drink, be merry. And now suddenly I was interrupting the pattern and I seemed odd sitting at the table going, I've had enough. Now, I've gotten accustomed to doing that. But this is the interesting thing. I have to remind myself to do it because my pattern is often stronger. That habit is often stronger than my will. So I have to be present before I go that this is not an excuse to overeat. This is not an excuse to do all the things I'm conditioned to do. And I've learned to enjoy, and I have some rules. Enjoy and eat anything I want. I'm not allowed to do one thing. I'm not allowed to overeat. I'm not allowed to eat like there's no food tomorrow. Because that's what I was taught to do when I was happy, when things were joyful, when things were fun, when I was having a good time. This is all the conditioning. So why is this key? And why is this so important? Particularly for everyone I think who I'm listening to are speakers and entrepreneurs and people who are up to big things in the world and they're up to big business. So the third question I said I'd answer is how does this emotional eating affect our leadership and our businesses? Well, this is the thing. Emotional eating, like everything else, is a habit. And remember I said that we are taught that to put habits in very specific categories. But emotions, we usually have a habitual way of expressing and dealing with our emotions. And we say, that's just who I am. No, that's your habitual way of being. That's the way you've been conditioned to respond to emotions since you were very young. If your go-to is emotional eating, chances are in your business, you are not dealing with certain emotions that might be getting in the way of your success. Chances are, if that's your go-to, you are not dealing with conflict, change, and crisis as a leader. Because if that's the way you deal with the uncomfortable emotion in your personal life, chances are you're dealing with it the exact same way in your business. What I've come to realize is that if I, the leader, create a culture where avoidance drinking, eating, all those things becomes the way we cope with hard emotions or celebrations, that becomes the culture of my business, my organization, whatever I'm creating, right? That's not what I want to create. Now, remember, I said this is about mindset and mastery. Emotional mastery is a part of mindset mastery. And leadership is really when I have an awareness that allows me to have a high level of self-mastery. And so what I have to do as a leader is to be aware of my habitual ways of being, whether it be my habitual way of thinking, my habitual way of dealing with my emotions, my habitual way of speaking things into the world, and my habitual way of being in the world. They all go together because all of that creates my influence and my leadership in the world. It's how I am known. And how you're known, your character, actually determines how successful you end up becoming. This is why it affects your business. So anyone who knows about the Freedom Retreat, which is a retreat I do once a year, this year we're going to beautiful St. Thomas, Virgin Islands, beautiful villa right up overlooking the ocean. The reason I do this retreat, it's about a wellness mindset for entrepreneurs and high producing, super achieving business people. Why do we do this? Is because I know that how I do my health, I want you guys to get this, how I do my health is an indicator of how I do my business. Because the first person I'm required to master and lead is the person I see in the mirror, is Suzanne. If I can't master and lead myself around my emotional self, and my go-to is eating my emotions, that's how I'm showing up in other parts of my life. Therefore, that's why I'm showing up. That's how I'm showing up in my business. So when people come to the Freedom Retreat, right, what they're really looking at is how they are dealing with their health, wellness, and fitness, which is often how they're dealing with their emotions and how it's affecting their ability to produce massive results and maintain optimal well-being. Because this is the trick, this is the key. My physical fitness affects my emotional and mental fitness or wellness, but more importantly, my mental wellness often creates my physical wellness. They are an interplay, and all that is the person who goes into the office every day and does business. This is why this is so key. So let me hear, what are you guys taking away? What are you getting? I see Ryan saying, I imagine a lot of overeating celebrations will take place post-pandemic. Yes, they will. We're going to have to be more mindful of those habits. Absolutely, right? Because what's going to happen post-pandemic is like what we do when we have kind of survived or come to the end of a stressful situation. We release that stress. And oftentimes the way people release the stress that they haven't been dealing with, coping with, talking about, they go and they feed it. They feed that space. The healthy thing as we go through the pandemic is to talk about what is going on for you. Talk about the feeling of being alone. Talking about the feeling that comes with uncertain times, talking about what it's like and the level of stress when you're working from home, managing children, your teacher, your teacher, mom, dad, all those different roles when they become one. It's highly stressful. See, we are taught to push through. And as we push through and we push down those emotions, we feed it and comfort ourselves with most common things, food, alcohol, and drugs. That's really what they are. To avoid the state of vulnerability and the state of feeling those emotions. But the healthy thing is to talk through it. to communicate through it and release the energy that comes with that emotional state. Awesome takeaway, an awesome comment there, Ryan. What else have we got? Yeah, I love that. Don't forget the guilty feelings. I see someone said, I had a similar fish situation. Food meant family. So if I said no to food, it was rejecting family. I had to change my mindset and I lost 40 pounds. Fantastic share. Thank you so much for this. So this is the thing, Ryan saying, my takeaway is that emotional eating is actually a way of running away from difficult situations instead of facing them head on. Absolutely. That's why it overlaps with how we react to difficult situations in our business. You're bang on, Ryan. And so, I have had a mentor and a coach all my life. I don't think I've ever been without a mentor or a coach at any period in time. Why it's so key is to be able to pick up the phone and talk through what is going on. I have close friends where we have created a space where we're able to be vulnerable with each other, and we've agreed not to do the pity party, not to do the woe is me, but to be compassionate, supportive, and hold each other accountable to being greater. That means we create this space where we unpack emotions so that we can move. So absolutely, Virginia is saying we'll dive into those patterns to understand the emotions that are there, and give up the words to the and give the words to the emotions. Virginia, bang on. This is so key, because when we are able to talk through and say, I am feeling this, I am feeling that, this is what's going on to me. I feel hurt. I feel disappointed. I feel betrayed. I'm feeling so much shame right now. I'm feeling so much guilt right now. When we are able to talk through them and put language to it, that is the first part of dealing. And one of the things about, this place that we feel, this thing that we feed, envision that it is this emotional state that's in us, and it's a disruption, right? And it's like an emotional stomach ache, if you will. So we've got this disruption going on. And what we want is we want to get rid of the feeling, the disruption that's inside us. And we use food to do so. But the disruption is energy, because emotions are energy. And what we're really required to do is to release the energy. The best ways to release the energy for Suzanne is to cry. It's often a conversation or a communication where I can release and talk through it and name how I'm feeling and name how I'm interpreting the situation. It's an opportunity to check out my perception of different things. And once I'm able to talk it through, it's amazing how I go, oh, I feel better. And I didn't eat. It is I release the discomfort, the energy that was creating the imbalance, and I no longer feel the need to feed it, to get rid of it. That's really what's going on. I see Carolyn. Hey, Carolyn, how are you? How I treat my health is a reflection of what I do while gaining wealth and business. Absolutely. I truly believe that my health is my number one place of mastery. And when I'm able to master my physical, emotional, and mental health, I have mastery over self. It is me. I'm the hardest thing to master. If I master me, most things are easy after that. And this is the reason why. No one can help me with me. I have to take 100% responsibility for my own mastery. But my own mastery gives me a host of skills. It gives me a host of awareness. It gives me a host of confidence. It gives me a host of insight. And that insight I'm able to take into business. And once I began to have my own emotional awareness and put language to my emotions, I was better equipped to lead the people I was leading and help them name what was going on. I was better equipped to create places and spaces where people felt that they could be vulnerable and it was safe. Why? Because emotions no longer scared me and emotions were no longer uncomfortable for me. Because once I began to deal with it and I saw the impact of dealing with my emotions and the freedom I felt, I wanted and felt comfortable creating that environment for other people because I understood the power of it. That's what's available for each of us as we begin to do this work. So with that, I'm gonna ask you guys to do one thing. Put in the comments section one thing you are going to implement, put into action this week as a result of this conversation. I'm gonna go and check, I'm gonna go and comment. I wanna know what you guys are doing. So as we part, I want you to know, as you go through this conversation, life is about grace to ourselves, right? Giving ourselves grace and mercy is what I call it. Give yourself grace and mercy. And when that disruption happens, take a moment and say, what is going on? Am I hungry? And if the answer is no, then go, what am I feeling right now? And take a moment to attempt to figure out the feeling. And then find a trusted place, a trusted friend where you can go talk it through. Just in doing that, you will begin the process of creating a new habit, a new awareness, and a new action around the emotion. Thank you so much for joining me and hanging out with me today. My name is Suzanne Hart. This was Unstoppable Mindset. And as we part, please remember to know you are brilliant, to know you are special, and that the world is waiting for you to put your unique gifts into the marketplace. We will be here next week, Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I have a very, very special guest that will be joining me next week. So definitely look for the promotions. If you want to find out more about this particular topic, or you want to connect with me to find out how you can learn more about emotional mastery and mastering your emotional eating, definitely book a mindset mastery moment, some time with Suzanne Hart. I'd be happy to sit down and talk to you. The other thing is, in the events, you'll see the link for the Mindset Mastery mini course. One of the key areas that we focus on is emotional mastery and also life mastery. And life mastery has a lot to do with your health and wellness. So begin to take the course, get a sense of where you're at, book some time with me. I would be happy to chat with you. All right, everyone, blessings. Remember to comment, let me know what you're taking away, like, share this with a friend, and get into communication with someone about what you learned. Because knowledge is power when we talk about it and when we put it into action. I will see you back here next week, Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Take care.